Well, thanks everyone for joining this evening. As Tom mentioned, Tom Bilbo, he's the chair of Stonewall Democrats. My name is Jonathan Cook. I'm the club secretary, and John Fox is our club vice chair as well as being the president, I believe, this year of the Vallejo City Unified School District Board. And also Carol Colum, who is our club parliamentarian. So that is our board. And thank you very much for joining this evening. Are we on the live stream now, Tom?
Yep.
All right. All right, so we will start with candidate introductions, and you have 2 minutes, as Tom indicated, as the rules for the format. And thank you again for joining. And first, we will go to Rick Vaccaro. And thank you for joining us. And go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for allowing me to, I know I couldn't make it last week, but I'm here now. So thank you again. You know, one thing, I've been a supporter of the LGBTQ community.
A little louder, please. A little louder.
Yeah, I'm trying to, let me move this. Okay.
Thank you. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. Yeah, I've been a big supporter of the LGBTQ community since the outset, since I've been in Fairfield. And this kind of goes back to my days in San Francisco. I moved to San Francisco from New York about 39 years ago. And I got an apartment in the Outer Castro area. That was around 1981. And for someone who came out from New York, did not have a lot of exposure to the gay community growing up, but now living within the gay community and working with a lot of gay men and women, it was actually an experience that I really cherish because I look back on it. Unfortunately, what happened is it was the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, and I lost a lot of friends. You know, it was a very sad time for all of us that lived through that. And it made me so aware of the community that I was living in and the people that I was working with at that time. Moving to Fairfield in 1990, you know, one of the reasons why we moved back to Fairfield was, well, my wife's from Fairfield and we needed a babysitter. And I like the community. And since I've been in the community, you know, I have been a big supporter of the LGBTQ community. And Tom and Jonathan both know that I've been a big proponent of flying the pride flag for the month of June. Unfortunately, I did not have the support of my other colleagues to do this. I'm hoping that changes next year, and I'll keep pushing for that. You know, I believe in equal rights for everyone. I've always felt that way. Like I mentioned earlier, moving to San Francisco 39 years ago really opened my eyes up to a whole different community that I really was not in touch with as a young person growing up in New York. That's really, I guess that is my commentary, and I would appreciate any support you can give me. And if I don't get the support, I will always support you. So I just want you to know that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Vaccaro. And coming in early on time, we appreciate that as well. All right, so we will continue with opening statements. And Raymond, would you like to go next?
Sure, Jonathan. Thank you for the introduction and for hosting and facilitating the questions. Raymond Kodemarsh, and I am a candidate for District 2 for the Fairfield City Council. And so kind of my history is I was actually a transplant from Massachusetts to the city of Fairfield. Parents had separated, became a homeless youth in the city of Fairfield. So lived amongst that population for many years, caught up in the complexities of homelessness, a lot of displaced youth for parents who weren't accepting them, etc. Those very variables. I met my wife, Teresa, of course, made some changes, got around some individuals, began to guide me and help me and equip me with decisions. Met my wife, Teresa. She was 22, I was 21. She had a son, Matthew Garcia, who was 4, and Brianna was 2. I convinced her to spend the rest of her life with me. We've been together for 30 years. some of you may know of Matt Garcia. He was actually the youngest elected city official in Northern California at the time in 2007, and we lost him in 2008. In fact, Rick Vaccaro, Matt's principal, actually assumed Matt's seats based on a request that my wife asked of him because they had been in discussion about how they can impact and lead the city of Fairfield. I have led my family through losing Matt. Be 12 years this month, September 1st. And I know that we've been able to influence and advance things in this world, but know that in the world that we live in right now, that I need to be at the table in order really to advance in solidarity and unity and inclusivity with the variables that are going on. I know that when this, George Floyd was murdered, I was advocating for a Black Lives mural in Fairfield along with the LGBTQ, just because we were in June, and presented to all the boards. So should I get elected, your support get elected, I will be also a collaborator with Rick with being inclusive of the entire community in the great city of Fairfield with the banner in June and beyond. So again, in a nutshell, I just want to bring Common Sense Council. My 3 platforms are supporting our small businesses, helping to end youth homelessness, and succession leadership. I believe that I have the responsibility to raise up leaders to pass on this opportunity to help lead our future. So again, Raymond Quartermarsh, Fairfield City Council, District 2. Appreciate the opportunity to just give you that.
Thank you very much. All right, and I believe Alma is on the call. Alma, are you there?
I am. Thank you so much, and I apologize. I was out
okay.
doing walks earlier, just right before this, and I happened the last door I knocked on. What I was doing was just no contact, dropping off my literature, but this homeowner had her door open, and she just happened to come to the door, and she just happened to strike up a conversation with me specifically around homelessness. And there was this particular conversation that was very rich and very deep with someone in our community who was speaking to me about what it means to view homelessness through an empathetic lens, and to ensure that we continue to talk about humanizing the experience of someone who becomes unsheltered, and then looking at the resources needed to continuously assist someone, not only once they become homeless, but what are the things that we can do before they ever reach that level. And it was really hard to disengage from that conversation, but I ran as fast as I could here.
That's okay. Just to let you know, so the format for right now, we are doing the 2-minute opening statements from Canada. So if you could tell us your name, the district you're running in, and the city, and just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into questions after that. So I'll start the clock when you start.
Absolutely. So my name is Alma Hernandez, and I'm running for Suisun City Council. I was raised here in Suisun City. I'm a 20-year resident, and I've been a community leader for 15 years. My background is pretty diverse. I've consulted school districts in the state of California. That has really given me the opportunity to work on working with school districts on the finance piece and helping them attain funding that was owed to them by the state. I've also worked in healthcare that really helped me understand vulnerable populations and really understand how cities can really provide services and programs that can help uplift those most in need in our community. And most recently, I work for a nonprofit organization that helps schools across the country. My specific role is to develop conferences for school leaders. So really talking about what leadership means and how leadership really helps to serve others and really uplift those most in need in our communities. There's so much that I want to be able to offer Suisun City, specifically the opportunity to really address issues around local economic development, really looking at helping uplift our businesses. There's so much we can offer because of our location. You can drive to Suisun City, you can arrive by boat, by train, you can cycle here. There's really so many ways to arrive to Suisun City that I really think we can really do something to uplift our community that is so much in need. I also want to work on community engagement is very important to me, specifically on addressing a diverse community level of engagement, so that when we have opportunities to have members of our community that represent different, from ethnic diversity to gender diversity to age diversity, and being able to offer their voice in how we make decisions, and for us to better understand what implications mean when decisions do take place, so that it's an inclusive decision-making process. Public safety is important to me. Most recently with the fires, we saw that Suisun City is just not prepared for a natural disaster. So prioritizing being able to ensure that we have what we need to just be able to support our residents at any point in time is really important to me. And as well as quality of life. What I just talked about when I started, the day-to-day living for people as they navigate our community is really important, because I want them to feel proud when they come home to Suisun City. And I want them to feel proud about raising their family here. And I want them to feel safe when they're walking around any of our city streets or engaging with other community members, that you can wave hello and this is this community vibe that we have. And so it's some of the things that I really want to continue to emphasize as we work to grow our economy, we work to grow our engagement, and we go to grow our public safety as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so next we will get to questions. Since you actually touched on climate change, I think that segues nicely into the question around climate change that we asked for the candidates last week. Myself, living as a Fairfield resident, I had to evacuate in the fires last month. The fires came over the rolling hills into Paradise Valley and stopped short of our neighborhood because of the heroic efforts of first responders responding from Contra Costa County for our neighborhood specifically. So the question I'd like to pose to each of the candidates is, climate change is here, it's now, and the governor's executive order yesterday puts us at a benchmark of all electric or renewable energy vehicles by, I believe it was 2030, is that correct? 2035. So that's coming up soon. What ways can cities be partners in this effort, and what are your plans for each of your respective roles? So Rick, if I could start with you first.
Well, first of all, yeah, I've met with Terry Vernon. I think I see Bonnie out there. She knows who that is. And actually, I've had conversations with Bonnie about microgrids for our community. I think that's something that, you know, climate change is real. I mean, I hear, it's so funny, you hear these people saying, oh, you know, it's a hoax. This is a cyclical thing. No, not when you have the fire starting in July and burning through November, and having them, 3 or 4 years in a row. I also was evacuated, and it was very scary. I think this needs to be I think this needs to be a regional effort. I really do. I feel that, you know, one thing that we're missing in this county is regional efforts, you know, not only with climate change, with other things, but sticking to climate change. We need to get all the cities on board with, you know, trying to, you know, look into microgrids and trying to deal, you know, with the disasters that are going to happen in the future. It's not if, it's when, and we all know that. So that's one, I'm a firm believer in that. I'm hoping, you know, we're going to get 2 new people on the council. Hopefully I'll be there again, fingers crossed. And then, you know, have some support, okay, for that. Right now, I feel like I have minimal support, but I think just like I talked about with the pride flag, but I feel that maybe with 1 or 2 new people there, we can, you know, form some kind of pact and also reach out to the other cities and work together from a regional perspective.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Placing myself on mute. And then to Raymond, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Again, you know, when I heard that, you know, 2035, the charge is like, okay, well, let's just make it relative to our community, and how can we approach that, you know, in a regional, as Rick was making reference to, because it has to be as collaborative, right? We have to work in conjunction with one another to the goal of where we're headed. It may be lofty, but okay. I love the quote, George Bernard Shaw, the half part of that. I dream of the things that never were and ask why not. I mean, so I think my point with that is that it just, clearly there's experts, and of course he talked about microgrids and we have our transportation center here in Fairfield. So there's just ways of just really, utilizing the assets or expanding on the assets that we have. But again, it requires leadership really to have that perspective and be in agreement with really what the charge is that's in front of us, that 2035 goal. So I'm open to just engaging into the experts in that. I'm not outside of my scope. I'm a great collaborator, bring resources together to make things happen. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. And Alma, to you, the same question, please.
Absolutely. I think the first concern that I have always is around climate equity. And what I mean by that is when goals such as having everyone have an electronic vehicle are put in place, my question is always, and how are we going to help everyone attain that, right? And so it's ensuring that whenever we have an opportunity to look for environmental projects or environmental goals, that we look at the infrastructure in place, the funding in place, the grants that we need, the collaborators that we have to have in order to create the infrastructure to help people also understand what it means to them personally and what changes that need to take place for them as well. And I think so part of it is education, right, is a key component of ensuring people understand the why some of these changes will be taking place and why it's important, right? And going back to talking about our infrastructure is ensuring that if we're going in one specific direction, is that we're ready for when maybe that specific item fails, right? So making everything electronic, going with electricity, when we've seen what happens with power outages, right? If everything is on the same grid, that paralyzes a community. If we have an earthquake and we cannot respond because everything's on a singular grid, that paralyzes a community. Who's affected most? It's the people who do not have access to the resources that are readily available, right? And that could be because of language barriers and don't understand how to attain an environmental service for them, right? Or because of a fire or an earthquake. So things like that are important for me to bring always awareness to. And that's what I really hope to bring, is to being in these types of conversations that are taking place and raising this flag of when these decisions take place, what does it mean to the person furthest away from access to those resources, right? And that is what I continue to hopefully advocate on, have an opportunity to do so.
Thank you. The next question I'd like to ask is around housing and homelessness. How would you, in your roles as members of city councils in your respective cities, collaboration, I think, is a theme that we've mentioned around working with county services, with nonprofit organizations who work in shelters and placing people into different types of social services. What is your approach, and what do you think are the top issues that the city can do to help further support this issue in our community? And Rick, if we could start with you.
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, yeah, everyone knows homelessness is a huge issue in our city. We have this tendency to blame the county for everything, and so the county has social workers, the county has all the resources. That's true to a certain extent, but that does not mean we can't maybe have our own. I talked to the city manager today about that. Why can't we find somewhere in the budget to maybe bring on a couple of social workers, some mental health technicians? I'm getting a little tired of saying, well, it's the county, right? If they're not going to reach out to us, because we've reached out to them, and to a certain extent, I think they are willing to work with us, and I hope they can be, like I said earlier, with energy, more of a regional approach. I spent a whole day down in Placentia, California, about a month ago, touring a navigation center. Navigation center had 100 beds, 98 of those beds were filled. It was an incredible experience, and they did a regional approach where they did get a lot of money from grants, but also the cities worked together on this. And it wasn't the greatest building. It wasn't like if you go out to Shelter Inc. and you see that building, I mean, that facility could be so much better than it is now. But the way they had it set up with their mental health workers, social worker, the food service, I actually brought their plan back to Fairfield and met with our homeless person, Don LaBar, and said, hey, look, you should take a trip down there and see what they're doing. So I think that's one thing that we're considering is maybe trying to find a spot where we can put a navigation center. Because honestly, I brought this up in one of our city council meetings. Shelter Solano has about 40 or 50 empty beds. That's unexcusable. You know, I mean, it's inexcusable. There's no reason for that. They did give me answers why. I actually don't buy it. I think those beds need to be filled. So that's going to be my push once I get reelected, hopefully if I get reelected, to see that facility filled and also to bring another facility on board, because our homeless issue is not going away. You know, you want families to be able to go downtown and enjoy themselves. A lot of families won't even go downtown because we have such a big problem. But that could be solved if we just, you know, we really just need to look at our city budget and say, hey, maybe we need to do something besides always relying on the county. So that would be my approach come November.
Thank you. Raymond, same question.
Yeah, Jonathan, thank you for that. So just the other day, I was with Joe. So he's like the lead for our homeless task force, City of Fairfield. And it's like, what are we missing? Navigation center. I mean, right off the top of his, he's been leading the charge in the trenches for the longest time since City of Fairfield birthed, you know, trying to reach out and develop some resources in conjunction with, you know, Solano County. You know, in the City of Fairfield, again, the city is not in, really, we're not charged with providing, you know, behavioral health, those services, that's the county, but the City of Fairfield has made a significant investment in trying to serve that population. Hence 310 Beck Avenue, that's actually a leased piece of property to the city for up to 90 years. And Shelter Inc. is the vendor in there that is providing those services, but they have a lid. There's barriers there. They don't have the capacity, the empathy to meet people where they're at, you know? And so that's, you know, with $3 million budget, 40, 50 bids missing, what's the threshold? What's the evaluation of that resource? So my point is to look at that. Should I get elected, that actually falls into, you know, District 2, and I have direct oversight with that. My approach to really address homelessness is, again, navigation center, you know, look at funding sources to bring that in, to approach that. We got all this other funding, Project Key, all that stuff, being a little bit more innovative in trying to manage those resources so that we can actually affect the change. Is to actually focus on youth homelessness. As a youth homeless in the City of Fairfield, and knowing that younger population and knowing youth homelessness actually is transitioned. 800,000 kids in the US go missing to this whole sex trafficking world. This clearly, that's a pandemic in itself. We as a city can approach that. And so my primary focus is actually I work with the Solano Family Justice Center with a coalition there, Anti-Sex Trafficking Coalition. We're actually going to build tiny homes. I'm gonna build a tiny home. Well, I have other people that want to build tiny homes independent of even the city, but at a larger scale, we're going to maximize the use of that 310 Beck Avenue. What I understand, Shelter Inc. has a 5-year lease providing care there. I think we're 3 years into that, looking at where they're at and setting some benchmarks of where they're going to be, and or initiate the process of looking at another vendor that actually can serve our community, because it's clear we don't have to, you know, we can do better. We simply can do better. So you can see I'm a little bit passionate about that, and guaranteed, you know, City of Fairfield is gonna, District 2 is gonna be the district to look to into addressing the homeless population, should I get elected to Fairfield City Council.
Thank you. Alma, same question.
There's a couple of things with this particular question. Recognize that it's affecting everybody, not just one particular community. But in Suisun City, a couple of things that need to be addressed is the fact that we don't really have a sheltering place in Suisun City, and that we don't have a nonprofit that is dedicated to actually address supporting homelessness in Suisun City. And what the reason that is important is because oftentimes a nonprofit can provide additional resources and time to look for grants and funding that sometimes when a city is limited in resources, just as Suisun City is currently in a deficit, that it makes it even much more challenging. So currently looking for ways to build in a nonprofit organization that can start addressing this particular issue locally is important. Most recently, what we've, as a city, have been able to do is attain 2 beds that are about to, that we're about to have access to from Shelter Solano, right? That's something that we didn't have before. So we didn't even have a sheltering place before. And for us, even though it's 2 beds, that's a big deal because we're going from 0 to that. But looking at other areas about our infrastructure in regards to how we're addressing homelessness requires many individuals to bring forth innovative ideas. Currently, we're all feeling the sense that we need to address the empathy piece, the human piece of someone who is unsheltered, as well as the services that are in place and who we can collaborate with. We talk a lot about the current services that we have with Solano County. Suisun City is dependent on those services, yet we're not strong enough to help those individuals most in need attain access to them, right? And so that's an area that we need to continuously work and grow on. The other area is looking for ways to, like I said, funding is important. So there are many organizations out there that do have grants available that we can capitalize on, because it has to do both with whether it's health grants that can attain someone to come out and support someone who might have mental health illnesses that we can address on site. Suisun City does not necessarily have like a task force that is combined social services with community policing that can go out to address this issue on site. There's starting to be a little bit of that, but we just don't have the infrastructure for it. So that's another missing piece for us structurally, which is ensuring that we have the social services needed, combined with individuals who can actually help protect the person who is providing social services to individuals who might need them, right? And depending on their case, everyone's different. Once again, there's 2 sides to this coin. What Suisun City has is a lack of resources around if someone is struggling with their finances, we don't have enough services to help them understand financial, like someone who can provide some financial consulting, someone who can support with a job, relocation, or helping them attain affordable housing. Affordable housing is another issue for us. So currently, Suisun City is mandated to create more affordable housing. The current conversation for us is what land will that take place on, because the way that we have to grow also has to be mindfully done. So being able to build affordable housing where there's access to public services is really important. Access to public transportation, access to local groceries and stores, and public services for individuals who are most in need. So being very mindful of where it actually lands so that we do a service for people who are in most in need. So there's a couple of things in there. It's multifaceted. And I think that that's what the solution is. It's multifaceted and will require more strategic thinking around it as well.
Thank you. And then the next question I would like to pose to the candidates is around economic development and supporting our small businesses in our cities. Obviously, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and COVID-19 has decimated many of our small businesses, including restaurants and independent stores, which are the lifeblood of so many of our small towns and cities across the country. How would you approach supporting an economic recovery and the respective cities? Tonight, that's Suisun and Fairfield. And I will start with Rick again.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question to answer, I'll tell you, because it's been so, this has been so devastating to all our small businesses. One thing I would like to do, if elected, is put together a task force to address this from the city of Fairfield. We're losing businesses downtown every day. We're losing businesses around our city every day. You drive up North Texas Street, you can see for yourself. We have to do, we've talked a lot about it. We've talked about the Heart of Fairfield plan, but really that Heart of Fairfield plan is not going to happen unless we do some type of recovery ourselves. within the city, which means putting together a committee, a task force, looking into our budget and see what we can do to try to help small businesses and protect our small businesses. You know, we need to really brand our downtown area better than we do right now. I've been really pushing our public works department. They've come to us, I don't know how many times in the last 2 years with the Heart of Fairfield plan. Finally, about 2 months ago, I said, well, where's the timeline? I don't see any timeline. I don't see, you show us pictures of things that were built 5 years ago. So to our assistant city manager's credit, he finally did come back with a timeline. And that's going to include some of the small businesses that want to get started. The problem is right now with COVID-19, with the economy basically crashing, even though, you know, you talk to some people that are, I don't know what they're thinking, the stock market's doing great, so the economy's not crashing. That has nothing to do with people being out of work and the businesses falling apart. You know, that has to do with people having a lot of time on their hands and trading every day. That's a little different. But as far as small businesses go, yeah, we're in a crisis situation right now. You know, there's restaurants that opened up, you know, a week before COVID hit, and they're gone right now. So that would be my plan, is to put together a task force, maybe a subcommittee on our council, and really start to work with our downtown association, and also work in, once again, I've mentioned regional approach. We need a regional approach to this too, because I'm sure other cities like Sassoon, where Alma's running, you know, and Vallejo and Vacaville. I've talked to the people in Vacaville. Every city's hurting in Solano County right now. So this might be a really good opportunity to have a regional task force to address economic recovery, because we're going to need it. We're going to need it bad. So.
Thank you. And Raymond?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So my approach to this is, you know, City of Fairfield had like almost $500,000 to try to help with some deferred costs, with stimulating with some of the small businesses downtown. So when I learned of that, I started circulating that information, actually knocking on everyone's door downtown and say, hey, are you familiar with this? Many of them were not familiar with even being able to apply for the funding. There was this large application process, really just a number of people that applied, and there just wasn't sufficient funding really to support, you know, the need that was, or the demand that was there. So my approach is to work with our city council, city manager, to aggressively pursue any federal stimulus dollars to be attracted to the city of Fairfield. I mean, to the point where we actually heard what Rick said as far as the task force, we hire someone to pursue the, I believe, millions and millions of dollars that are going to be available, that are going to come down to our city. And so to be able to help really innovate, you know, so to revitalize, you know, really that approach. But for a very long time, downtown has constantly been neglected. And again, it's about leadership. I appreciate all the work and things that I've done, but it's about the leadership that is down there to try to lead that and to try to support that. Again, you talk to some of those businesses down there, they don't feel engaged. They don't feel heard. There's no a connection with them, no communication. They're always talking about something that's going to be in the future. Well, what about right now? What's going on right now? The gentleman, they call him Captain, he owns Subway. Webster, been there 20 years, owns the property. City of Fairfield's knocking on his door, asking him for property tax, right? He's asking them for their taxes. He's out there making sandwiches at 9 o'clock at night because he can't afford to pay someone to do that, you know? So my point is that our approach to try to really engage with small businesses, it has to be flipped upside down. It has to be, you know, about them and about their retention and about their success, deferment, whatever the resources that we need to do, or even try to engage the property owners with those tenants for deferment in the future, not 90 days from now, because it's going to be this curve that's going to need to take place. So I'm an advocate. I'm a small business owner myself, and I'm an advocate for small businesses. And we are going to revitalize the heart of the city of Fairfield in the future days. I truly believe that, because there's a strategy. Everybody wants it. It's not, you know, just not pie in the sky. Everybody wants it. And so we got to look to those resources that are available from federal, from state, and then even in our general funding as well. So.
Thank you. Alma?
Thank you. This question means a lot to me. I currently serve as president of the Solano Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I've served on this board for the last 8 years. So small business is very, very close and dear to me. I currently serve on the Suisun City Economic Pandemic Impact Citizens Advisory Committee. So we've been meeting for quite a few months now, and it was placed to address the current issues that we're seeing with our small business owners as a result of the pandemic, right? Especially when everybody had to close, and that it was detrimental. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do was, as soon as the Small Business Administration loan came out, I had the opportunity to go and just knock door to door to our businesses and provide them guidelines of what they needed in order to be able to apply. Why? Because we knew we had a very short time window, and we had a lot of people who just didn't understand the logistics of it and didn't understand how to even apply for it. So that was a very important piece. And what ended up happening is some of our small businesses actually in downtown Suisun and some of the surrounding areas didn't qualify for that first grant, the first loan that came out. So they'd been hurting since March, right? Until an additional funding source came out. So it's individuals who needed help rethinking about their business model. And this is what we've been able to do successfully. For example, through this through this committee, we were able to advocate and get approved from council the emergency outdoor dining services that were made available for restaurants that could actually host their guests outdoors, right, safely. When it got passed, information went out by email and there was a press release, yet not many applicants. So what a colleague of mine and I did, we printed the information out. Once again, we went door to door to our restaurants this time. And there's a couple of things that we discovered. We discovered that we have a lot of restaurant owners who are the frontline worker. So they're out there preparing food and serving food. They're not behind the scenes, managing their computer and looking at their email. So there was a lot of communication that was getting lost. Secondly, we have many small business owners that have English as a second language. And so there was terminology in there that was getting lost in translation. So being able to explain to them something that might have been, because of the terminology, difficult to understand, was extremely important just for them to know how to navigate those resources for them. And especially because they were the most in need in that particular moment. Through these last couple of months, we've started to see how businesses have started to host outdoor, have started delivery services, have now opportunity they've revitalized how they're promoting themselves online. And all of that takes work and takes effort and takes encouragement, right? The other piece that's really important around local economic development, other than just supporting our small businesses, is ensuring that Suisun City looks viable and is viable for investment. So when there have been opportunities when developers have come around, we don't meet their basic needs because of we don't have a proposal to show them like this is why you should invest in us. And we're not at the table, when we're not having those conversations, they're not looking at us. And so it's extremely important to continuously looking for ways to develop ourselves and ensure that we have what we need, so that when an opportunity comes, we are ready to have that conversation and that we're ready to negotiate to the benefit of Suisun City. Currently, what I'm doing is I've sought mentorship by a commercial developer who has developed for the last 30 years in Suisun City. So understanding what others look for to make us viable is extremely important to be able to bring that into the conversation. So a local economic development, once again, has multiple ways of for us reaching those goals. Small business, ensuring that we remain viable and ensuring that we have good investments coming in. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. One of the other questions I wanted to ask is related to something that Rick mentioned. I think we at Solano Pride Center and the Stonewall Democratic Club were able to get 6 out of the 7 cities in Solano to issue Pride proclamations. The county issues a proclamation, they raise the flag, but they only gave us a weekend. We don't get the entire month. That's a political thing. We could go into that later. But one of the things I would like to ask each of you is, how would you have those conversations with your colleagues? Obviously as a club, we're advocating to try to place as many of our allies as we can onto city councils, but Those symbols matter. They're very meaningful, especially to young people who may not see a lot of representation or positive messages around the LGBT community in their schools, especially if they're being bullied. So I'd like to ask each of you, how would you have those conversations with your colleagues about why this is important and why you support it if you do? And if we could start with Raymond.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember the contention. I was at the County Board of Supervisors when we were talking about, the flag being flown for a month, and the very strong political conservative view and approach to that. I mean, you just can feel the tension in the air. And so again, it's just about a clear representation of who we are as a community and the diversity of our community. As an evangelical, that has many LGBTQ plus friends, openly friends, hide openly gay men and women in my businesses. I've helped many pastors help understand this sin perspective where their children want to commit suicide or have attempted to commit suicide. So I know it from and again, having grown up in that complex environment and identity, trying to understand myself and the understanding my friends and helping them understand who they are and accept who they are. So I understand it firsthand. And even Matt would say, he said that if we would support the youth, we would allow them to be who they are, right? It would help stop the crime, self-inflicted crime, and strengthen the very communities that we live in. So it's about just allowing people to identify and celebrate who they are as a person, and not having so my conversation is just that it's real. It's just like, it's common sense counsel that we're having with our community, and we as leaders have to champion that and advocate for that. So I would say, even with our city manager, he just recently hired an openly gay police chief officer, right? So she's openly gay. So I really see this as an opportunity, although there's some pushback with the colleagues, at least behind that dais, because again, I requested that we do the BLM and the LGBTQ a mural when all that chaos was going on in June, when George Floyd was murdered. No one replied to me, that conversation I had with Rick. But anyway, so it's just about really advancing. And I think as we bring leadership to the table, that's what's really going to influence that inclusivity, is that I keep saying, that inclusiveness. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rick, same question.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe we're even talking about this. You know what I mean? I mean, really, in 2020, you would think that flying the pride flag should just be something that's going to happen, or maybe something that should just be there all year. I mean, it's really kind of, when I discuss it with a couple of my colleagues, well, the taxpayers might not like it, or this group, well, who cares? I mean, really, if you don't stand up for your rights, I'm going to go back a little bit to when I ran the court and community schools after I left Armio. And, I worked with a lot of kids that were really struggling with coming out, especially, and comes to mind, a couple of kids that were involved in gangs. And they were so afraid to come out because, oh, I can't, because what are my other friends going to think? And I saw them struggle to the point of almost suicide, and it was really tough. And I think about that, and it still makes me really sad that they had to go through that. And hopefully now they're in a better place wherever they, I've lost touch with a few of them, but I still keep in touch with some of them. Yeah, I think that we have an opportunity right now in Fairfield to make this city our own. Really, we can do things right now that could really broaden everybody's horizon, but we have to get some forward thinkers on that council. We still have a couple of people on that council, and I'm not going to say who, but that reject the notion of flying a pride flag, or reject the notion of the LGBTQ community actually being a vibrant force in our community. And it not only does it saddens me, it really sickens me, because, having a lot of close friends that I had and I still have in San Francisco, and some, like I said, unfortunately that I lost. Like I said, to start out, it's hard to believe, like somebody asked me in an interview, "The Black Lives Matter to you?" I said, "I can't believe you're asking me that question." I mean, and I know I shouldn't answer it like that, but it really, it's amazing that we're talking about in 2020 these issues that really should be part of our fabric right now and part of our society. So yeah, if I get the opportunity and I get the votes in June, that flag will fly in the month of June. And like I said, I don't even see an issue with flying it all year. Why not? It's part of our community. People are in our community. They need to be part of it and they need to be represented. So thank you.
Thank you. Alma, same question.
Thank you. This is a very important question because something that you said earlier resonated, which is symbols matter. Like, it's symbolic, it's representative, and it is something that has been hard fought for, just to be able to have a proclamation, which Suisun City does, for a flag, and to actually display it and showcase it and feel pride with it as well. I grew up with members in my family that are LGBTQ. And because of that, I grew up very close to understanding exactly what you mean about someone who grows up with fear of who they are and owning who they are, right? So one of the reasons why having visual representation is so important is because it is important for our youth to understand that they should honor their authentic selves, that there is a place for them in our society, and that they have so much to offer themselves, and they should see themselves represented in city government. That's just how it should be. One of the things that is important to me is also to address any systemic inequities that exist. So not to be able to fly a flag is a systemic inequity, right? It's a process issue. So it's one of the important things to always have someone at the table who is saying why it's important to continuously educate members in the community who do not understand the why. And not understanding the why is one thing, but ensuring that we're bringing and closing those gaps of communication so that there's full understanding of why inclusivity is so important and what it means to be able to have everyone in our community feel represented. So that's really important to me. So one of the things for me in Suisun City is to ensure, once again, that community viability, that people feel like this is home, and at home, you should feel safe by being simply who you are. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will say, to the credit of Suisun City, Mayor Wilson made a very nice gesture to the community. She placed a pride flag and this very nice shadow box, and she has it displayed permanently in City Hall year round. And so they had, there's an issue with the flag policy with the city, but she did make a workaround so that the flag is on display in City Hall year round. So I do appreciate that from Mayor Wilson. Just out of curiosity, I'd like to do just a rapid round, yes or no. Would each of you support the city of Vallejo last night debated painting Black Lives Matter in front of their city hall? Is that something that you would support? And Alma, I'll go to you first.
The answer is yes.
And Raymond?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
Wonderful. Let me double check if there are any questions from the audience. I saw last question, this was from Shelley Loffmiller in Vallejo. It says, what do you recommend the CARES Act funding be used for that each city has received? Rick, would you like to start?
Yeah, we have to really look at, our employees took a huge hit about 12 years ago, and a lot of them lost their jobs. And I think, that's something we need to really look at. I'm afraid that I don't know what this is going to look like come budget time. It's going to be pretty scary. And I really feel for a lot of the people that took a huge pay cut and people that lost their jobs, and some of them that didn't get their jobs back. So I think that's one thing we have to look at, and whatever we can do to not only help them, but also help our small businesses for economic recovery, like we mentioned before. It's a pretty simple answer. I think it's really people in business we have to care about. And I wish there was a way we could help students also. I know that, they can apply for the CARES Act also. And I would encourage all students too, if they can't get that loan that they need, because they're really, they're our future and they're suffering. Being a former high school principal and director of the county office of ed, I saw it firsthand. I don't know how many FAFSA applications I helped fill out and talk to people, and when I was at the schools. It's just too bad that not enough people know about that. But yeah, that's where I would direct the money to.
Thank you. Raymond?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about people, right? City of Fairfield, I think they were projected like 3-5 years of deficit. And let alone, 12 years ago when we took the hit, as Rick mentioned, and staff took concessions and people were lost. And I really think, even as, earlier, when I was talking about, the heart and, the homelessness, City of Fairfield is pouring $4 million into Allenwood Park to redevelop that. If we're not dealing with our core issues, people and being houseless, it's just like a Band-Aid. We're really not addressing the core issue. So again, we really need to look at people in this whole source of funding for long-term. So that would be my passion.
Thank you. And Alma?
Definitely. Once again, I believe also the people should be at the center, and people in different aspects of how that funding arrives, right? Whether that's because they need rental assistance or because they need public service assistance or health assistance, whatever it is that they need, that is allotted and allowed within the CARES Act funding that can align to people being able to access that money because they're in dire need today, right? Also because I represent small business, there's a piece of that funding that was allotted to small businesses as well to help them, just like any funding that they needed to just help them keep going to thrive through this particular difficult moment in time. So it helps the individual as well at that level. So continuously keeping people at the center and continuously raising what their voices are and needs are is really important. I know that the CARES Act has some regulation about what you can and cannot use it for, but as long as people are at the center of that and at the core, I think we can move forward with it fairly well.
Wonderful. And then we have one last question from Brenda Crawford from Vallejo. It says, what are the needs of seniors in your community and how do you intend to create programs to support those needs? And Alma, do you want to start on that one?
Sure. As I've been walking around dropping literature, one of my favorite things is to just have a better understanding what day-to-day life looks like just walking on the street, right? And there's a couple of things that I realized we have just in these a few weekends. I've counted 32 on-ramps for wheelchair use in homes, and some of them are really bad. Like people just put plywood together and try to make something happen. So looking at, as people grow older, and what the physical needs are, and do we have programs in place to help people ensure that they have a high quality of life in different aspects is important. That's one area. Another thing is continuously having public services available to them where they are. So right now we have a senior center that is closed because of COVID-19 that will reopen once we are able to get into a safer space. But we still need to have robust programs of care, programs that are ensuring that our seniors who are in senior centers or assisted living facilities have opportunities to continue to connect with community when that's possible. I think that there is so important for individuals as they age to feel still connected with others. That I think is really good for their emotional and mental well-being. And because they're not to be forgotten, it's one of the things that is if anyone has ever had an opportunity to go and volunteer at a senior center, sometimes they feel like they've been forgotten. And so there's so much about being able to connect to them as well. And then continuously looking about what public services we have that are easily accessible to them. And what I mean by that is sometimes it's as easy as, do we have a bus stop close to where there's predominantly a higher population of seniors in the area? And that might sound simple, it's not. But it's something that if we're not paying attention to our demographics in our city and where people are moving and what is accessible to them, that those things get missed because they're not, some individuals are not thinking about it that closely. So going back to kind of where I started is continuously listening to what the needs are of people and is in looking at the quality of life for them and what is needed for them that the city can support and advocate for, whether it's a service or whether it's a program or just making that human connection with people. Thank you.
Do you know, does Suisun City offer CDBG funding for nonprofits that work with seniors?
That's a good question. I'm personally not familiar, but I will look into it and follow up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Rick, same question.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that funding, because I've had some real issues with the funding that's been going on in Fairfield. I think actually I brought that up at pretty much every year for the last 4 years. Okay, I'm not quite sure why certain funding is going to programs who get a lot of funding from very wealthy people. So why does the city have to? Getting back to seniors, yeah, I mean, listen, our seniors and our young people, okay, that's who we need to take care of the most in our city. I've said that from day one. Obviously, I have a real passion for young people, being in education my whole life. But, you know, like Alma had said about her senior center being closed, so is ours. And we have a really nice senior center. We have to find a way, we really do have to find a way how to take it to them, you know, take the services to them. I don't think we're doing a really good job of that right now. You know, and that's something, COVID-19 is affecting everyone, and everyone can get very depressed about it. But our seniors, you know, I mean, how many people do we all know who have not left their home, or left their home twice in the last 6 months? I talked to a guy the other day who told me his wife had to go to the hospital because she basically has not left her house in 6 months. And it's affecting her mentally, and now it's affecting her physically. So if we don't do something right away, as far as bringing the services to them, because obviously they can't go to the senior center or other places where they could go to relax, then we're going to get more and more cases like this. When I heard that, that really depressed me. I was like, wow, you know, I mean, we could all be like that, right? I mean, we've all been inside for a long time or not been able to do certain things, but our seniors are getting more affected than anyone. If this continues, which more likely it will for a while, we're going to have to find a way to get those services to them. So.
Thank you. And Raymond?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Great question. Thank you for that. I mean, that's really, so my approach really is raising up leaders that have an engagement, affinity for the maturity of the seniors in our community. So, because again, you know, they're going to be making decisions to govern and provide resources to us for our future. So I think it's important to raise up leaders that are engaged really with the people mindset, the community mindset. So my thought was approach Meals on Wheels. How is it, you know, what are the needs of those individuals that have been shuttered, you know, been closed because of this pandemic? And really, how can we, you know, do survey that, and how can we create some resources really to, you know, raise up additional resources to help meet those needs or get them engaged? Again, so many different things that are going on based on this COVID pandemic that we're all experiencing. And so it's really staying engaged with them, and even assuring of that, you know, medication and medical coverage and all that stuff's not going to get compromised. Just really building that and affirming that for our older population into our community. So I think that's extremely important for us, and to listen to them, really, you know, every opportunity I can, you know, I'll ask somebody, what are you passionate about? What do you think's missing in our city? And, you know, give me a nugget or give me some discernment, some wisdom, so that I can really forge the change that's not going to be systemic for generations to come. So it's really engaging and listening to the wisdom and the wealth of knowledge that comes from our seniors, so we can serve them and lead our future.
Thank you. And then very last question, I promise. We just had another one from Barbara Gaya around everything that's happened with police brutality across the country, and especially for cities where the police department is a majority of the city's budget. Would you support creating I guess you could call it a citizens oversight review board, where citizens are able to sit and talk to the police chief and city council members and the city manager to bring concerns from the community about policing issues? And Rick, I'll start with you.
You know, Fairfield, thank you. Fairfield just formed actually, I think the applications, I believe the people were chosen for a budget committee that is also going to be looking at the budget, the police budget, and, you know, what we can do with it, whether we're going to bring in more social workers, as I said, but that's separate. Police oversight, yeah, I would definitely welcome that. I think it's really critical, though, if we're going to have a police oversight agency, that we have the right people on that agency. Too many times I've seen people come on to an agency like that, like a blue ribbon committee for education, and basically come in on attack mode. And I understand that because there's a lot of passion out there. And there's been a lot of things that have happened in the last year that really a lot of fuses have been lit and probably needed to be lit for a long, long time. And it's here now and it's a reality. And I think I think an oversight agency could absolutely work, like I said, if you have the right people. We would need, look, Fairfield, I've said from day one, diversity is our strength. That's the strength of our community. So we need to get a very diverse, agency, not just, 6 business owners or, or 6 or, 2 young people, 3. I mean, we would really need to look at who needs to be on that. We would need people from education, people from business, probably people who used to be on law enforcement, people, activists in the community, people that could work together. Because if we don't work together on an oversight committee that really would look at police reform and how, how we would change that. Look, my father was a police officer in New York for a long time. And, if he was alive today, he would be shocked at what he's seeing, from the police right now. Because I never remember him using that kind of force before. The mindset has really changed right now. And I think, yeah, the police feel a certain way and people feel, they have too much power. And the unions do have, unfortunately, they do have a lot of power. And I know I probably shouldn't get political, but look who they support for president. Okay. Maybe I should just drop the mic on that one. Huh? But I mean, that's the reality of it, right? Police unions throughout the country support our president. And we already know where that's heading. So yeah, there definitely needs to be some oversight out there.
Yeah. Thank you. And Raymond?
Yeah, I'll just say this. I was interviewed by all the associations and I said this, I said, part of the reason why I didn't get the endorsement, I'm like, you don't just have bad apples. I mean, if somebody's a murderer, then they're a murderer, and then I would expect you as leaders to address, why in fact do we have someone leading, at that level anyways with a firearm, trying to protect and serve, so how are they managing, or how would, so I support 100% an oversight that has, greater power than the unions when it comes to protecting you and me. Our tax dollars are funding these, them to protect and serve us. So I have I'm very passionate as well as trying to address these issues. So I am in support of having an oversight or building an oversight or understanding what that looks like, and something that really can affect and lead to change that we want to address these systematic issues that we've had to deal with for generations.
Thank you. And Alma?
I think this is an important question because it's not only because of our time that we've been seeing most recently, but it's because it's truly important in the sense that I believe in transparency and accountability, whether that's the police or any other type of entity, right? And the reason I believe in that is because this is how we hold our public service organizations accountable to what they are designed to do, which is to protect and serve, right? Suisun City is, there's been a lot of noise, but Suisun City actually does not have a lot of, in our most recent reports, our excessive force data statistics are very small in comparison to some of our surrounding cities. So we don't have necessarily like that kind of issue that we're seeing faced by other cities and neighboring cities here in Solano County as well. But what we do want to have is to ensure that we're still having accurate training around diversity and accurate training to have best de-escalation techniques for our city, having good service members, right, that are keeping accountable to our community members and always ensuring that community is at the forefront of everything that they do. And we've seen that, right? Our current chief of police most recently this was about a month ago. There was a very explicit report. It was kind of captured on video where there was a police officer in Suisun City that behaved inappropriately, right? And within the week, that was investigated. The process went through because of changes they've done internally in our city, in our police department, and that officer was no longer with our department by the end of that week, right? So it's one of the things that we talk about, ensuring accountability to when something is not okay, to address it in the moment, right? And that's really, really important. On June 13th, Suisun City hosted a community policing forum, and that's where all the community came out and asked for a clear reporting of what they wanted from the police department. So that's part of the power in the voice of community, to say, this is what we want to know, this is what we want clarity on, and we want clear reporting on it. At that moment, the police chief was able to provide some reporting data, but was instructed from there on to look for additional answers to the questions that were being asked. And so a committee was formed in Suisun that addressed those questions, right? Whether it was most recently the issues around de-escalation, or issues around police excessive force, or do we have a diversity on the police force, our hiring practices, our turnover rates, all of those things were being discussed. And most recently, our police was able to provide a report on it for us, right? It is at the direction of our current city council. The direction is that we want to see continuous reporting that's that transparent every year. We didn't have it before. This is the start of something new. We like where it's going. And we're seeing that this is another way that we can also ensure that we have, we're looking how to improve internally, right? Improve what we have and make it continuously stronger and better. So that's important in regards to what we're trying to do in our community for public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all three of our candidates who joined us this evening for answering our questions and taking the time to speak to our club. We really appreciate it. And Tom, was there anything else that we had for club business? I'll turn it back over to you.
Yes, actually, we do have club business. So candidates, if you want, you can have a nice evening, and we will let you know. We're going to be voting starting after this meeting. We release our votes, and we will let you know the outcome, and wish you all luck. We do vote offline for this year because we're voting through the internet, and we will let you know and be in touch. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your ideas and everything else. It's very nice. Thank you. So yeah, we'll let you go and have a great evening, and thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
The opportunity is a pleasure to make everybody's acquaintance. Look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks again.
Okay, all right, so shouldn't be that long. That went on a little longer than we expected. So all of you should have gotten a link to the meeting documents for tonight. I'll display the agenda. It's not that packed, so yay. So we sort of moved the city council thing into the beginning. We'll do a call to order. So we're calling to order at 7:47, our latest meeting. We have a quorum. Thank you all for joining us. The Pledge of Allegiance will make that totally optional this time, just in the essence of time. But remember, we're Americans. We're here. Some of us are queer. Some of us are queer supporters. So thank you all for being here. I want to acknowledge that we have the candidates here, and then also John Fox, who's in the room. Thank you so much for being here. We have candidate Bonnie Hamilton is here. She's running for the Board of Education District 2, right? Okay. I'm looking. Did I miss anyone? We will call out Brenda Crawford is here. She is on the Area Agency of Aging on on Aging. And we also have Leah Metzenheimer and Stephen Hell here, who are field support for Monica Brown. And we have Karen Sims, who's here, who is a member of the board of directors for GVRD. So thank you all for being here. And Shelley's here from the city of Vallejo. Well, she's here from us, but yeah. Anyway, so thank you all for being here. So we're going to do a quick poll, if I can find out how to get my, there we go, for the approval of the agenda. So if you guys could vote. Who's missing? Did everyone have a chance to vote? I see there's one left. Okay. Well, it wins. It's share results. We got 100% voting. Oh, I'm the 14th. Okay. All right. Then also, if you had a chance to look at the minutes for the last meeting, which was June, we did not have meetings in July and August due to all sorts of craziness going on and getting ready for this. But in June is when we had our second reading of our bylaw changes. They changed to allow us to vote offline and handle things that way. And whenever I say offline, I mean not in a meeting. So those are out there on our drive. If you go out to Stonewall Democrats or Solano, StonewallDemocrats.org, you can see the bylaws, as well as I think I posted them in links that you've been getting. So we will launch that to approve the minutes. Or first off, do we have a motion? I didn't do that the last time. Damn it. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay, I see Carol Cullum raise her hand first. Bonnie, she beat you. All right, so launching poll now.
Tom, how do you abstain? Since I wasn't at the last meeting.
Just don't vote.
She's an expert witness offering an opinion.
I'll let her answer. You're so in the space for being unique and difficult situation.
Okay, has everyone voted? All right. All right, so you got 10 out of 14 votes, so that's good. Well, 10 out of 13, I can't vote because I'm... Okay, moving on. Reports. I'm going to give a brief report from the chair. I just wanted to let you guys know that we had to today, what was the phraseology I use? We had to remove a member that had been a member that was not active for a long time, but they paid their dues today and we refunded that. The member currently has a investigation and criminal things going on, and we would not want that in our club because of some other things and the nature of the crime. And so we did refund that member's dues, and we also unsubscribed him to our mailing list. He was sent an email out, and we we did not want to have that, or I did not know he was still in our books. So anyway, so that's just one thing there. The other thing is we have been getting a lot of response for the voting. So thank you all to all of you who are voting. If you have not voted, the votes are still open, but we will be closing the 2 that are out there tonight, but we will be relaunching One Vote in the education area that I mentioned down in the number one, which is, thank you, Bonnie, for calling this out. In Travis USD Area 2, we actually can vote for 2 candidates, not just one. So we'll be doing that. So I'll move on now to John Fox.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. For my report, we've been doing a lot of forums. I'd like to thank Tom Bilbo for the excellent job setting them up and just all the behind scene work that has happened. So we've all been very busy. I'm sure all of us here have been very busy with lots of forums. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the Vallejo School District. As you know, we're looking for a superintendent. We had a lot of wonderful applicants apply, and we were very pleased with the pool. Yesterday, the board took 5 hours and narrowed it down. So we have 5 applicants that will be interviewed tomorrow by different various community members. And then Saturday, the board will be interviewing the same 5 people. And hopefully Sunday, if we don't come to a determination Saturday evening on who our finalist is, we will have continued finalist interviews on Sunday. So we've been dealing with this process for a few months now. And again, we're very pleased with lots of successful, wonderful candidates. So we'll update you with that once we find out. I think that's, and then we're going to continue on with the distance learning as we have been. Even though we went from purple to red in the county, or for Vallejo, we still want to make sure that students, staff, families all stay safe. So we're currently working with negotiations and working on plans for a hybrid model, like you see among all across California. But depending on their numbers with the 4-color tier, that tells you where you're at, but you have to be there for 2 weeks. But not only there, you have to be there for 2 weeks, there's lots of other variables as well. As you all know, we're going into the fall flu season. So the flu with COVID and all the other, there's a lot of just less scary components right now. So we're doing our best. We're going to keep everyone safe and keep with the distance learning. We're planning on continuing at least through December and then see how it goes beyond that. We did a press release today letting everyone know that we are going to continue on the same path we're on and just keep readjusting, keep reevaluating how things are going. So that is my report. Thank you.
John, one thing you mentioned, I think it was in July, you had a committee set up and you included some LGBTQ members on that committee for talking to these candidates for superintendent, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We had a couple with children, and the daughter is going into kindergarten they actually started kindergarten. Now it's been in kindergarten for a month now in our Vallejo City schools. And so I wanted to make sure not only to represent our LGBTQ population, but also having children in our district. So it met different criteria. I was very excited about that. So yes, to look at the new superintendents coming in and to ask questions. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Tom.
Okay, super. Okay, Jonathan, do you want to say anything? Jonathan. This is where we find out that he's off playing the game. Okay, we'll move on. Carol, do you want to speak to anything?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Go back to here. Do this. Go back to the agenda. Okay, we will email out a treasurer's report. We're trying to get some last minute things over to the bank because that's one thing, have not been leaving the house much at all. I think Chris and I went out. We've been outside of Vallejo 3 times in the past, is it 6 months or is it 12 years? I don't know, something like that. However long we've been in this weird space. It just seems like forever. All right, let me share the screen. What is this doing? Okay, so moving along. So old business. Oh, endorsements for you. Now we get to look at the. We'll look at the education races that we have right now. Find out how to do that.
She made a different choice.
Can you see the endorsement results for education? No. Okay. Oh. What about now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So right now, as it stands, Quinn's invoice is 95% for the Solano Community College District 5. Trustee Catherine Frost is 60% for the College District 7. And Board of Education, Bonnie, you're on here, so you get to see yours. You're at 95%. And then Fairfield Sassoon, District 1, Bethany Smith is at 65%. Leslie Umberfirth is at 50%. So that will not be an endorsement unless we get, it is still open because there's a couple of members that had some problems. And so they're going to finish their voting tonight. Fairfield District 6, Anna Patera, a club member and huge Democrat, is at 80%. And then this is the district where you can sort of see that it's evenly distributed, but we can actually have 2 people here instead of just 1. And so this one race needs to be redone. It will be redone in the city council. There will be 1 additional question, so this one will be redone. Trustee for Vacaville, U.S. District 6, Kelly Welsh is at 90%. That's good. She's a club member and also a good supporter. Christy Gardner is right now at 85% for Vallejo, U.S. District, why do I keep doing it? District 2. And in Vallejo District 4, Dr. Latanya Young is at 55%. So she will get the and that one she'll probably get the endorsement. Any questions? Okay, these will go, the finals will go out for this one, will go out tomorrow, so you'll be noticed that. And then for the mayoral one, again, these are still preliminary because there's some people that are finalizing, are getting their vote in. So we have 28 responses here. For Mayor of Benicia, Steve Young is 82%, pretty much a sure thing. Rio Vista, Emily Gollinger. I don't know if you guys had a chance to talk to her, but it's amazing. She's a breath of fresh air. And then in Vallejo, Robert McConnell is at 64%. Hakeem's at 28%. And this would be John Kinney at 2 votes. So again, these will be finalized and sent out. The city council city council races will go out tonight as well. Now that we have had a chance to see everyone. So there you have it. So But since we're here just a little casual, did everyone find voting to be an okay thing? Did you have any problems?
It was excellent. Very easy.
Okay. And what you don't know is that Link actually put in an ID from your ID from our MailChimp. So that's the way we made sure that it was you voting.
So I thought the whole process was well organized and pretty glitch free. And I actually enjoyed all of the whistles and buttons and bows that you play with, Tom. You know, with the polls and all of that stuff. So it was a great meeting. Great endorsement. Congratulations, y'all. You did a good job.
Yeah, and the big thing about doing this offline with changing our the way we vote off, I want to say offline, but it's not offline, where we vote outside of the meeting, is we're getting people back engaged with the club, and they're also paying their dues, so they can vote and get back engaged. And I think that's one of the reasons that whenever we were looking at the bylaws and trying to adapt them to this new phase hell that we're in, I wanted to make sure that we were able to get some more engagement with people.
Good. Yeah. Can I say something to John Fox too? It was wonderful, John, to hear that you had LGBT parents in the interview. Is that what I heard for the superintendent?
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much. I think that sometimes we forget about same-sex parents and families. And I know that Vallejo has a number of same-sex families. And it's good to know that you're engaging them in the public process. Good for you.
Thank you. Yes, we do have a number. And this couple has a daughter that just started kindergarten. So they were very excited. And they came to me actually looking at different schools because they were accepted at a few different ones. And they wanted my opinion and just help them through the process. I introduced them to principals. And actually, they were a little nervous about being accepted as a same-sex couple and with the other parents, not from the staff. And the principal and the staff, it's worked out very well. But they were a little apprehensive because they want to be involved. They want to be involved with PTA and everything. But privately with me, they're like, well, we just want to make sure that other parents are accepting. And
right.
So it was nice to go through that process with them, just to hear what their concerns were, and then to hear what their concerns were for what they want in a new superintendent. So it's been a really good process. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, and I see Stephen Hallett has his hand up.
Are we going to be doing anything for our endorsed candidates other than just giving them our endorsement?
So we are doing some things for our candidates, yes. So as you know, the Central Committee has made their endorsements, and we're supplying voter reg data to those candidates. And in the candidates that we endorse here, we can also supply voter reg data, even if they're different than the candidates or than the endorsements from the city council, from the Central Committee. So we can replicate that because it's actually coming from my personal database, not from anything in particular, but it's the data from just the voter reg files, and it's geared so that they have everything they need for walking papers, email lists, phones, and mailing lists if they need that. Now we will also be looking at for the next month, we're going to have an earlier than normal meeting at dispensing some funding, because that's what we're here for, to prop up our candidates and help them win.
Well, ballots are going out this weekend, so if we're going to do something for our candidates, time is of the essence.
Yeah, and that's why we're having a meeting earlier than normal next for October, so we can do that. So they can use it to spend on commercials, Facebook push, social media push, and things like that.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, going back to Jonathan, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we had talked about a letter for hate crime transparency. I think we had dropped that ball with some of the other stuff going on, but can we get that out in the next month?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, because one of the things that we voted on to do was to send a letter to all of the police and sheriff's organizations within the county and ask them for their hate crime data and whether or not they are reporting it accurately and what their data is, so that we could review that.
Yes.
Yeah, so we will have that back for everyone in the November timeframe to look at. Okay, moving on to new business. So there's really nothing actionable here, but one of the things that we are going to be doing for our candidates, which are for general election support, is we can do phone banking. We actually have access to do phone banking, so because we have lists and stuff, so we can phone bank for our candidates and call people and get them up to energize about the candidates. That's something that we can do now. The other thing is postcard writing. I know that Benicia is doing some of that, but we can do it for our candidates as well. We actually have a list of likely LGBTQ people in the county, and that's who we should be reaching out to get them to go in their district to vote for the people that are our endorsed candidates. And so we have that. It's pretty easy because you just pair up where it's same-sex people in the house, and there's some other things that we get that way. So there's that. Then email, we will be doing email and social media push for our elected candidates to go out during this time. And so what I would ask is if you have, when you see those emails come out, forward them on. When you see a post come out, post it. We'll be boosting some posts as well to make sure that our candidates are being supported once we have that finalized. Okay. The next thing was farmers market tabling. I know Paula and a couple of other people, Karen, are working on tabling at the farmers market, and they're going to need some help. It's candidate or it's some candidate specific stuff, but it's also we have some general just get out the vote stuff that we need to help with. Mask up and make sure that everything is covered and all that jazz. But there are farmers markets in Vallejo, Fairfield, and Benicia, and of course there's some in Dixon. I'm not sure about Rio Vista, but another one in Fairfield covers both Sassoon and Fairfield. So if anyone is in those areas and wants to help out, email myself, Jonathan, or just eboard@Solano Stonewall Democrats.com or org rather, and we will get you into that. The other thing is we have some Biden signs, Biden-Harris signs. If you want some of those, they're window signs, not yard signs. And then we also have California Democratic signs that say vote that you can put in your window as well. If you come by my house, you'll see them on my front door. It helps to get people to know that. Carol, maybe in your area, you can put them somewhere if you'd like, since it's a new area for you.
Yeah, I don't know. We can do that. We're not allowed to put political things, but we can do vote.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm organizing here on voting.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So if any of you want some of those signs, that are here in Vallejo. I have them in Fairfield, Bonnie and Jonathan. I think Brigitte has them. Or if you want to come and get them, you're more than welcome. And then we're going to be giving them out at farmers markets as well. So I know they're covering farmers market up county, and then we're doing the Vallejo farmers markets here, and we'll probably give some over to Benicia as well. So we have those for everyone.
Good.
Yeah, so let's get out the vote. The other thing is we're going to start doing pushing to make sure people are registered and also verify your registration. And Barbara sent around a thing that we'll be publishing as well for making sure that your signature matches, and you can send a new signature because they're going to be validating that now this year with everyone going in more. I don't really see how they can do that. That's a lot of, God. But anyway, not mine, the reason why. So Barbara,
The county does that every year.
They do?
Yeah, they have machines that verify the signatures, and then usually that gets about 99% of them verified, and then if there's a problem, they check it manually, and most of them go through without a problem.
I always thought my scroll was different every time I signed, but
Me too.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Stephen. And is Barbara on? Where's Barbara? Barbara, are you there? I think we've lost Barbara. Oh no. Anyway, but yeah, so we'll send that out so you can check your signature and submit a new one. And share that to all your friends and your friends' friends and on down the line so that they know they can vote and everything is good to go. And go ahead.
Also share with people that a lot of people who are used to voting mysteriously get taken off the rolls. So you should check before it's too late to re-register. It doesn't take
very much so.
to.
Yeah, so yeah, and so I know like Chris is actually redoing it because his name on the voter rolls is Christoph, right? Christopher? Chris Randall? He's probably not paying attention, but his name is,
it got changed. Actually says Chris Astafer or something like that. The weird thing is it used to be right. So somebody at some point retyped my name into a list and got it wrong.
Yeah, so I don't know who I'm living with, so either one of them. But yeah, so it's very important. And then also at the Central Committee, we had as the IRO for that, I was putting people into a contact list for us to use, and found that one of the members was not showing up, and turns out that there was a problem with his file, and they had to correct it. He has voting data now that it's corrected. It shows voting data, but he was not showing up as active. So we found that, and I was like, well, wait, you're not a registered voter here in Solano County. But then it was like, oh no, and he voted. Now that his record is showing up, he has voted all along, but there was a problem at the county level. So it does happen. And he said his mother has also been unregistered or something as well. So need to watch that. So make sure you pay attention. And I'm gonna assume that it was just by a some sort of clerical error or something that happened, but we need to make, because I wouldn't think that would happen here in California, but you never know. So make sure that you're registered. You can check it online, and you can also re-register online. All right, so that's pretty much it. I'm done talking. Any items for future agendas? Okay, hearing nothing. Announcements. Jonathan? You want to announce about some of the new group stuff that?
Yes, so just if you want to find a list of everything that's happening at Solano Pride Center, go to solanopride.org/calendar. We have a few different community groups. We have groups for youth, for seniors, but then recently we have our men's and women's groups that are meeting. All of that is happening virtually on Zoom. So check that out and make sure you're following a list for current updates, and make sure you subscribe to our newsletter. And that's where you can find that. We also have our weekly happy hour on Friday evenings. It's a nice way to kind of unwind at the end of the week. Last week was a little cathartic because we were all very depressed after hearing that Justice Ginsburg had died. So yeah, please join us. We'd love to have you.
And the women's group is for any woman in the LGBTQ spectrum, the same thing with the men's group. Yep. So it's open to both trans and cisgendered and also gender fluid. And that. Paula, you have your hand up.
Yeah, you mentioned next month's meeting is early. I'm just wondering what the date is.
It is. We're actually having it October. Right now it's scheduled for October 20th, but I'm looking at calendars trying to bring it forward 2 weeks. But we just got it out there so that people will remember that we have an October meeting. But we are trying to arrange things so we can bring it forward to where it will be like the first full week of October. So look for that. There'll be something coming out tomorrow. That was funny, your cat's tail was right there. Okay, all right. Anything else? Anyone else have announcements? Bonnie, what about you? Do you have anything for your campaign?
No plans. We did have a kickoff with Betty Yee, which was amazing. She is an amazing person. And well, look for things to come. Probably we'll have another event coming up in a couple of weeks, a few house parties planned, but don't have set dates at this point. And again, thank you so much for your support. I really, truly appreciate it. Thank you.
And just so you know, Bonnie is running to unseat a Republican. So she needs our help. We need to make sure she gets elected, especially on the Board of Education. John can tell you that because of the way that makeup is for that particular board, they're allowing charter schools, maybe not in their town, but down here in Vallejo, which is a problem for funding for our Vallejo schools.
Right.
So we need to get that there. Yes, that's right. Erin Hannigan has endorsed Bonnie's Republican opponent, which I thought we were going to send Erin a little love note to say, hey, you can't do that as a Democratic Central Committee member. But that's not. I'm dealing with tech stuff, not that. But
That's okay. We're going to go high when they go low. So.
I just think when they go low, you kick them in the face.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? She actually endorsed your Republican opponent?
Yeah, because it was reported to the executive board of the Central Committee, and people were like, "Oh, I don't think that's the case." And I went out and found it on Amy Sharp's website, and I was like, "Here you go."
And Pam Bertani as well.
Pam Bertani endorsed
Amy Sharp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that the Central Committee needs to do something about that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the reasons Pam Bertani did not seek our endorsement from the Central Committee, other than the fact that she's also running in a race that's unopposed. So,
yeah. Well, we need to challenge Erin about that. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
I mean, she is my supervisor, so I would be very happy to write her a letter saying,
Fine.
I think you should do just that, Brenda.
You know,
will-
I actually emailed both Aaron and Pam Bertani today and asked them if they would consider a dual endorsement. I mean, I figured, well, you know, I'll at least make them think about it.
Yeah, and I think we should probably apply some pressure. Anyway, so that is definitely something that needs to be addressed. Any more announcements? Brenda, what's going on with the United Dems?
Well, we had our endorsement meeting, and we are right now trying to set up a forum around Measure G. We've invited Nyhoff to come, and we have invited, I've forgotten who's going to be the con. Who is it, Paula?
I think it's Stephanie Gomes.
Stephanie Gomes. So we're trying to set up kind of a pro and con for our next meeting around Measure G. Hopefully anyone who's in the room that has any influence with Greg Nyhoff can get him to show up and speak to the issue, and let him know that he would be welcomed with open arms, and nobody is going to bite him or do anything that he would expect someone to do, that I think that he probably expects us to do, because I think he thinks he's coming into hostile territory, and that is not the case.
Well, it's over Zoom, so
yeah, right, exactly.
The bite won't hurt that much.
Exactly. So we're hoping that occurs, and we're hoping that we can get some traction, and that will be interesting enough to gather the community as a whole to our meeting. So it'll be well publicized.
Okay.
Have you reached out to him?
Yeah, we've reached out. Paula, yes, we've reached out to him. Yeah.
Has he responded?
No,
not yet.
Not yet.
But it was a couple of days ago, right?
Yep.
So.
All right, yeah, we will be voting on ballot measures for Solano County after this meeting as well, because we already have some documentation on all the ballot measures and all the pros and cons statements for each of them, so that will be sent out to the membership. Thank you for bringing that up, and it will be going out for you to vote on as well. I believe, let's see, so far we have the Central Committee voted not to endorse it. The Chamber of Commerce voted not to endorse it, and a couple of other folks have.
I thought the Central Committee took no position.
Well, they voted not to endorse it. They didn't vote no endorsement because I was script on my side, but they did not. It was not endorsed. So
right.
It was a non-endorsement.
Yeah, they only had two choices: to endorse or not to endorse.
Ah.
Yep.
That was my fault, because that day that meeting was hellish as it was.
Well, if it passes and we all have to pay that extra tax, we're sending you the bill, Tom.
Yeah, they'll get paid real quick. Anyway, all right. So if there's nothing, I'm sorry?
Everybody should campaign against it, and there are going to be flyers at the farmers market on Saturday. I think there's already one group down there. There'll be another group down there that has a different kind of a postcard. You can pick up extra postcards and hand them out. And hopefully, if UPS doesn't follow us, there'll be yard signs on Saturday.
Cool. And then also, I know the page Reform Vallejo PD is also putting out stuff against Measure G. And so if you see stuff on social media, share that to all of your network so that they'll know not to vote no on Measure G if that is your position. Right now, since the club has not taken one, I can't advocate one, but Measure G is something that will impact the sales tax here and also anyone who buys online stuff. All right, with that, we are going to.
Tom?
Yes, ma'am.
If I could just have a minute. The city of Vallejo recently voted to adopt a housing strategy. And because we felt that there was not enough community input into that housing strategy, we've been giving some time that the Vallejo Housing Justice Coalition is going to be able to have community meetings to be able to get that input out. Also to help people understand what that strategy, 125 pages meant to the community. So I'll be sending out, or we'll have Crystal send out something to you if you could disseminate it to the members on, we're going to have workshops online, and we're going to try to take pieces of that strategy and try to explain what it is, what's there and what's not there, and then get community input. So we'll be sending that out shortly.
Okay, great. Yeah, that'd be great. We can pass it on. Okay, with that, I am gonna, I need a motion to adjourn. Who wants to adjourn? I have a 10 o'clock call with India, so I need to.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Who seconded?
I did.
Okay, all right. So we have it on video, and we will now launch that poll so we can vote. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All.
Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thanks all. Take care.
Stay well. Stay
Bye.
safe and
You
well.
too.
And thanks
Okay.
again for your support. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for coming. And oh, I forgot to introduce Jolie, our newest member. Or well, not newest. She's been going back a while. But all right. Thanks so much, everyone. We're
Bye-bye.
adjourned. Bye.
Bye.